So we're going to take a look at this entirely different illustration now. His name is Grak. Rhymes with my name. I wish I was this cool. So I'm just going to get rid of his really, really cool name. Here, one second. I'm just going to clean this up. Okay. And I'm going to get rid of the ground. And I just want to show you what's happening to the character that is being caused by the environment right now. We can bring in a floor later on. We can bring in a shadow. We can bring in whatever we need. But what's happening is that everything feels really flat and out of perspective. So this is a little bit different from what I just talked about. This fundamental has to do with environment and it's kind of like how to establish perspective for any object in an environment on a flat surface. So it's not really about portraits or characterization anymore. So it's a big jump. So create a whole new page in your notebook now. Okay, so this Grak fellow, what's going on? Okay, so I'm just grabbing him from his background to the best of my ability, and I just want to show you how much more clean the background could have been. Again, it's okay to add graphic effects or whatever, design stuff in the background, but what's happening here is that it's no longer about the characters alone. It's about all this other stuff in the background. So I'm getting rid of him, the background. And what I want to do is, first of all, flatten him against the ground underneath him, and what fundamental it takes to do that. So if we were to think about a basic square, okay, what does that basic square do when it is flattened? That's not a square. There we go. So when that square is flattened, it looks like this, right? But that's not how things flatten in this world. If this square was drawn on the ground, it would flatten like this by elongating on one side and then flattening. All right, so we end up getting a long side. This long side to the square happens pretty much everywhere on every square that sits on top of this surface. The square of the feet. So we're seeing the top of the feet right now, or the rectangle of the feet. We should be seeing the feet like this, like that, exactly like this. We're seeing the top. So it's almost like he's wearing heels from the side. Is Grak wearing heels? If he is, that's fine. I'm not judging. But is he? Doesn't look like he is. Right? This guy is very proud of himself and his masculine identity. So we're not gonna give Grak heels. So we're gonna flatten his foot. We're gonna flatten his foot and then arrange the knees. Oh, work it. We're gonna flatten the knees against the heel. That's gonna change what the hips are doing. And we're gonna try to find the symmetry line. Once we do, well, this is the kind of center of mass symmetry line, meaning that we need to make sure he's balanced against it. And usually to skip this, what artists do is they don't draw this whole square thing. They just draw kind of a Cartesian plane or a perpendicular X or a cross underneath the character that they feel represents the perspective we're looking at. Sometimes it's a bit flatter, not flat, sorry, it's a bit more open, and that's if the character's head was closer to the camera and the shoulders were in front. So if Grak was just like taking a selfie from a high angle. But if it was even flatter than this, the one I've drawn, it's really flat. That means that we're really zoomed out, kind of like an orthographic view. So this is something in between, and we're going to draw an X coming out of it. This X is a really, really clear way to show what's happening with your square and how, and you can elongate the closer parts of the X to help you see the perspective. So you kind of just do something like that. Okay, shows the background horizon line, shows the foreground horizon line. Horizon line isn't just about the line on the horizon, it's about every other line after that of points, of latitude points, up until you hit the horizon line, okay? So there are latitude. This is a latitude line, and this is a or longitude, depending on how you're looking at it. Like that, okay? So right now what I'm doing is I'm just trying to figure out how to make Grak look like he's standing on some ground. And so again, I told you it starts with your feet. The most important thing when you're working out, when you're doing any kind of lifting, is your form and what your feet are doing, what your heels are doing, what your knees are doing, and that all starts with your feet. So this character did not look like he was standing on a flat ground. His heels did not feel like they were flattened along a surface. Okay. And so I'm trying, he has a bend in his knees, kind of like that overly muscular guy bend in the knees that can happen. You can make his knees a bit more straight. He'll look a bit more heroic. So the bent knees kind of makes him look like a very stiff action figure. They always have a bit of a bend in the knee. And I'm not trying to shrink his feet too much. Okay. And this leg over here, really, you should just erase it and start all over because it's looking a bit like a little doggy paw. But I just want to make it so that that ankle at least is doing something else. So we have a bit more flattening happening. And then of course there's the flattening of the ankle. All right. And so I'm just trying to flatten his foot along this shoe that he might be wearing. I'm not sure what the shoe is. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is take Grak's head and lower it along his shoulder line because it's just a little bit too high. I want it to look like he's not only wearing shoulder pads, but he's extremely built. And so I feel like he'd look a little bit more like he's just moving forward like that with his neck. Remember, from side view, especially muscular men, you have a bit of a bump in the spine. The neck comes out of the spine, and they have these like big chests like that. Okay, and sometimes they're just straight up. The neck isn't even there anymore. It's just the head shape. And if it's a crazy creature-esque type being like him with a big jaw and all of that, there's no neck really. It just goes straight into head because there's so many muscles that are overly built, distorting the elegance of the silhouette, I guess. Okay, and because we did that, now we can adjust the background a little bit. So I'm just going to make this the background. I'm going to take this Grak and shrink him. He's a bit too big for his environment. And I feel like you didn't pick the best lighting that you could have picked. So I'm going to duplicate the layer and lock it, put it on darken. And I'm just going to pick any environmental blue value and darken that top layer and reduce the opacity, just so that we have a believable character against background darkness. Okay, oops. So I'm just gonna brighten that background layer just a little bit. Again, this isn't me keeping it this value. This is me just finding the shadow color, because then I delete at where I feel like we do have brightness. And it should always be from the top for character splashes, because it makes the scene feel more like a character design window in a game. Kind of creates this authentic feel to your gallery. Makes it feel like we're about to design our character in the game. Okay, so we're adding some like real shadows here, some bounce light. It's a lot to fix, it's a lot to change. It's a lot for me to change in the time that I have left, which is like 10 minutes. but I'm gonna try my best to find a good lighting for us to use, or a good lighting scenario, or a good lighting setup for us to use. So saturating, I'm going to turn that off. I just want to get rid of this extreme contrast you have here. You have some extreme levels of contrast. You should not be using this much contrast without something causing it. Either it's some kind of explosive or some kind of incendiary element of some magical quality, or some really reflective material. There's so many things that can reach that level, that spike in value, but you could have just kept a very, very simple yellow value for the outfit. It did not have to be this extremely, extremely discolored, overly exposed value. And I'm just trying to create that three-dimensional look to the thighs using radial shading whenever I get the chance. And I'm using my soft brush because it gets the job done, but that doesn't mean you use a soft brush. Most of the time when students who are new to art use the soft brush, they use it wrong, which is not good. And I'm just trying to respond to a light source that is coming from above. Okay, so every one of these is a little cylinder. It's a little bump that just gets a shadow. And the further we get from the light, the darker his feet should get. The higher we get to the light, the brighter all of these objects get. And you have some lines left over. Also, his design is very confusing at times. I'm not sure what's happening. What's the common theme? There should always be a theme to the design. The design feels like it just can't make up its mind. Feels like we've got some bug-like elements, Spider-Man-like elements, and we've got some dark magic Majin Buu elements here, and then we've got some bug-like bioluminescence. It just seems like you're trying to do it all because, you know, while you're drawing and you want to throw all of your recent inspiration for the last month into one character. That's not good. Don't do that. I'm trying to give the head, and he looks like Kratos as well. I'm trying to give the head some shadows. We have no shadows here. So this is what happens when somebody tries character design without doing any portraiture. And that's fine. Some people would never really get into it. But the problem is that it comes back. You just have to be okay with that. All your faces are going to look kind of off. I, at one point in my life, decided that's not okay. That is not acceptable. I want to be good at faces. I want to be able to draw the best faces for my characters. And then everything else was just secondary. But people are different and they want to do different things. So you just have to decide kind of how important is the face for your character. Is it important to you? Is it not important? And then go from there. For me, it was very, very important. And I'm just trying to figure out this character's design because his face is a little asymmetrical. And then now that I'm zoomed out, I'm going to bring those little eye glows back, but I'm just trying to bring that contrast back where it belongs for this face, for this body. I'm going to throw in some general shadows that should help make the chest feel more three-dimensional. And catching some light. I'm responding to a new light source, so I'm rebuilding the lighting basically. So the top of every single one of these objects is going to respond to the light source. I'm using dodge tool again just to save time. This is not something you should be doing continuously or reliant on it. And then I'm just going to throw in some bounce light for these pectorals. A couple of bounce light lines for the abs. And then I'm just going to bring burn on low and try to burn down some of these values I added. So again, there's not much I can do with a character design that's reliant on lines. but this is what I can do for now. So once you have a character that feels like they really are responding to the environment, this common blue shadow I added everywhere is really helping the character pop. So I'm just going to delete some of it as it sits on top of the yellow, because yellow and blue aren't going to work. And then I'm just going to do even more darkening. So I'm going to duplicate and just darken the whole thing. Just drop all those values down on a new layer, of course, and delete only where I feel like, again, once again, there really is shine. Only deleting where it feels like something is glowing or having some shine aspect to it. Do you see what that does? So the more you darken, but again, don't over darken, that's not what I'm saying, the more you'll get a chance to relighten. And I feel like this character is kind of on the evil side, so he really needs to have some extra bit of shadow on his face just to make that happen. And his whole chest area should just be brighter than the rest of his body, since it's so big and it's casting a shadow on such a dark, on such a small waist. Okay, so we're constantly darkening the character against the background, finding this middle ground. I also want to raise some of the shadows we have here with a lighten on a common blue value, something environmental. And I'm just raising the blue here with lighten. Just trying to get rid of some of that muddiness or murkiness. And then I'm going to bring this value on normal, on a soft brush, in a new layer, and I'm going to add that bounce light of the environment on some of the muscles, on some of the obliques here, a little bit on the thigh muscles, the leg, the side of the leg, the side of the shins, just to make it seem like the environment is reflecting a little bit of light on him. You can darken the environment once again. You can do pretty much whatever you want now with this, because these values are now adjusted to a light source that feels a little bit more realistic. That nothing is extremely saturated, nothing is extremely jumping out at you anymore. Because he's got because he's got an atmospheric glow of some kind, you could make it so that his entire character is darkened, except for those, and except for the areas at the very top, and those little bounce lights that I added. And of course, there's light coming in from the side on a more medium level, but we have a nice glow brought back in for whatever this is, and that eye glow. So we end up getting a really cool kind of, where's soft light? Kind of like a magical glow, or whatever you want to call it, coming off the character's armor. So you get a chance to show that section off. But because you added this glowy section that doesn't really make much sense in an open light, it gets confusing trying to figure out what to do with your character and how to light them up. So, especially because he's wearing yellow. Yellow has to be desaturated in darker environments. It just does not work in saturated environments. Even in the old environment where the light was shining on the yellow outfit, you should have desaturated. This is like a Street Fighter environment. So we should be seeing something a little bit less like Dora the Explorer saturation colors. Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm just going to correct what I missed a little area when I lassoed. And so there's so many different light environments you could pick that make a character that's evil and armored and kind of possessed, like Majin Buu style, than just a plain background that is sort of, kind of bright, that has a gradient. A gradient background isn't that exciting, isn't that awesome. It's really not that it doesn't do anything. But this black background has given us a chance to do so much. We could add a spotlight at the top of the character or behind the character, and that way we can bring in some light back to show him off. So lighting, gesture, perspective, character design, trope, all of those things are required when painting characters. And it seems like you skipped studies for all of those subjects. Do you see how much of different fundamentals go in to painting a character like this? There's so many. And so when we say, okay, you got to study your fundamentals, we're not trying to slow you down. We're trying to make it so that once you get to this level where you are painting a character like this, really, really developed character with a developed lore, and it's a personal character of yours, you're ready. You're ready for all of the components that are required of you. So like there were so many things we covered today. Again, even if you darken this just a little bit, you can add that ground layer back and it can be a bit brighter. Deselect, lower opacity. It can be a bit brighter just to show a basic environment because the light is shining on it from the top, and you can blur it out of the way just so it looks like a basic ground underneath the character, and then you can add his cast shadow as needed. So I wouldn't add a crazy cast shadow going back or anything like that. I just add what you need right under him. Lower the opacity. Let me shape it first and then I'll blur it. So flattening that shadow to just sit right under him, just like that. Nothing too advanced, nothing too out of the ordinary. Shouldn't be trying to attract the attention of the viewer. This is a very low part of the canvas that isn't that important. So you really shouldn't be worried about it. And then filter, blur, Gaussian blur, oopsie, Gaussian blur. And I'm just giving that just a general presence and then reducing the opacity a bit. Oops. Making sure the cast shadow is darkest closer to his feet and just a bit lighter away from his feet. You can offset it a bit if you'd like. Okay, you don't even have to have the spotlight behind him. You can get rid of that. As long as you're just constantly building this slow rise to the highest point of the contrast. So now if we get dodge tool, we can really explore where these shiny parts are of the design of the character. So there's like a line right there and a line right there. There's like a band right there. Do you see what I'm saying? So you can take your time with it. You can make some stuff really pop. Oopsie. Merge down. And there's a lot of fundamental study behind making decisions like this. It's not just a quick exploration of a character and then things just fall into place if you pick the right color. Now, there's a lot of thought about lighting and non-art related stuff like camera work, non-art related stuff like mechanics and architecture and perspective. So all of that is art related stuff is the lesson. That's the lesson here, is that eventually you do realize, oh my God, art is so much more than just picking my original character's eye color. You know, there's so much more that goes into it. And then I'm just going to add in those specks, those highlights that you had. And I'm just going to make him look to the side a little bit, just so he's not looking down for no reason. And I'm going to kind of give them something other than a perfect circle, maybe just make them like a slit of some kind. I feel like we don't need them. He looks so much more cool. Superheroes look cool without, or supervillains look cool without that extra stuff. But maybe we could give him something like that. And then just make it glow a little bit with a new layer with soft brush on low opacity. And just kind of drop in a couple of those. And if you really want to, you can throw in a full shadow. Look at that, that's so cool. And you can keep the shadow really strong, deleting only at wherever we have environmental changes. Like that, the side of his hat, I mean the side of his body, the side of light environment changes, I mean. So you're really just darkening it as much as you can get away with. And it just looks so much more cool and so much more threatening if this is how you want to deliver this character story to your audience. Do you understand? So I hope you guys learned something from today's, oopsie. I hope you guys learned something from today's class. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. I don't know why it's filter, noise, noise. Meh, it doesn't really work as well as it used to. And that little light at the top. Okay, Grak looks like a totally different type of person now, yes. I'm just gonna add some light on the top of his shoes since the light would be coming to that part, and then a little bit of white, and then just getting that dark value once again and redarkening, just so that it's more proportionate. And the top of his shoes actually looks like it's catching some light. So that was a whole journey of self-discovery for Grak. So before, too much light. Kind of looks like he's just trying to take a picture for his Instagram. Do you know what I'm saying? Just outside, just on the streets of New York, you know, just against a building. And now he looks like he's already killed your family. Before, and lots of light settings in between. I went through a lot of different ones, y'all. Like I went through the one where it's dark but light background, the one where it's dark, and the one where it's really dark and the spotlight behind him. Lots and lots of different changes, but they're all story related, and they're a culmination of many deliberate fundamental decisions that make this success a deliberate one, because you reached into the bag and knew exactly what you were pulling out of the tools at your disposal. So that's it for today. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys want to learn more about portraits, I have a masterclass and it's on sale. So the critique hour that I did, the critique that I did at the start of this hour, the portrait, it was just scratching the surface really of the fundamentals that are actually in action in a portrait. And my masterclass covers them all. I have lists of which brush to use where. I give you the brush. I give you a written version of the class. If you're someone who likes lists, I love lists. That's why I provided one. And you just go through it. The reading is synced with the masterclass. So if you watch the reading and read along, if you watch the class and read along, it's just a whole list of the things I did written right there concretely. So you don't have to guess at what the fundamental is. It's right there. And that's why I ask all my students to study portraits first, because everything that happened here, from edges to contrast to detail to symmetry, rotation, will happen, especially on a 3/4 view face, will happen on a painting like this. The fundamentals revisit you later in life with other subject matter, even if it's this kind of subject matter that is completely different. But I let you guys go. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next week at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Bye.